What's up? What's up? It's your boy Norbs, and this is the 10-8 podcast, and this is a special episode, an extra episode on Thursday night that I had to get done. You know what I mean? Of course, I got to bring one of my favorites I love to have on the show, my man Iceman, John Scully, and he's had some things to say on the internet recently, specifically Twitter and Instagram, that I want to put out there and address because my man needs everybody to hear how he feels about these things. And we're going to discuss the email champions and how it's affecting boxing. And is it right? Is it wrong? Who knows? But we're going to do that right after this. John, what's up, my brother? How you doing?
I'm good.
Oh man, you got the reception went crazy there, but how you been, brother? Everything good?
Yeah, everything's fine.
I know you're back at the gym. You're getting focused. There's rumors of possibly the rematch coming up, right? Part 3. We're hearing possibly in October between Arthur Beterbiev and Dimitri Bivol. But there has been some controversy in that regard, which to me is kind of odd. And I feel like you've been very expressive about it as well online. Shout out to Ashley's review. You guys ended up taking the L on the last fight. And, Arthur, in my opinion, I thought it was really crazy that he didn't get the first option at a rematch. We seen them offer the WBC offer. David Benavidez the fight. Eventually, him turning it down and being handed the belt. Let's start off with why. I mean, why do you think they didn't go straight to the rematch and kind of flirted with the fact of a fight with David Benavidez?
Right. I mean, I really don't know. I would naturally assume the third fight would have been first in everybody's mind. You gotta settle things. And it's funny, like they may come out and say, well, the regulations and the rules, state this and that. But when have they ever followed the rules of the organizations? Like they do when it suits them, different sanction bodies, and anybody in boxing, the rules, there are no rules, the rules of that particular day, and sometimes there's a mandatory guy, and then other times they just bypass him and get other fights. So I don't really put a lot of stock in what the rules actually say, but in boxing, I would think as soon as the fight was over, my first thought was the third fight is natural. Like there's no other fight in the world at 175 pounds that I think anybody would really want to see.
No, I mean, and that's what I thought, especially the fact that he won the first fight, and immediately they turned and said, "Oh, we're doing part 2." They didn't go to Benavidez at that time, which kind of leaves things open to interpretation, and it's kind of like, were they favoring Bivol the whole time? It kind of gives you that vibe. Because let's say if Bivol wins the first time, does Beterbiev get the rematch? Which I think is a fair question, especially with the actions taken off of in the second fight. And that whole thing just really threw me off. And Arthur is a people's champ, and what I mean by that is he fights because he wants to be great. He wants to be recognized as one of the best ever. You said it before. Money doesn't move Arthur. Being a champion does. And to see that there wasn't a third fight immediately done, especially, which I found weird. Bivol was like, he wanted to take time off because of the shots that he was taking and things of that nature. Right? He said he wanted to take some time off or whatnot, and then immediately negotiations started when a Benavidez fight. When they went to negotiations, what was your thoughts on that situation? Like, how did you guys take that?
To be honest, I did not talk to Mark or Arthur about it. I very rarely get into the business with them or with any fighter, that I'm dealing with. I just have my own thoughts on it. But like I say, I mean, I just felt like the rematch should have been first and foremost. And I think, even Benavidez, I would think now, he's a fighter, so he wants to fight, and I get that. But I guess me as a boxing person, for so many years, I would think, let the third fight happen. You fight the winner, because the rivalry has to be settled. It's a tie. Both fights were close. It has to be settled, for you to really lay claim to undisputed. And the fact is, Arthur's getting older. You don't want to age this guy out and just, feel like you're waiting on him, to get older. So, I'm hoping that this is legit, that we're fighting the third fight. It makes perfect sense. I don't see any other fight that could happen at 175.
Well, they did strip, well, not strip. He relinquished his belt in a move to for whatever reason, he relinquished it, and they emailed it to David Benavidez. That's another issue I had, and I don't understand the email process of this situation. Right. And what I mean by that is, wouldn't it make more sense that Arthur he lost the belt? Wouldn't it make sense that he would have first dibs on the belt? But what I mean by that is, why not put the two top contenders to fight for the vacant belt if that were to be the situation that Bivol, let's say, wanted to take off, instead of just emailing it to David Benavidez?
Right. I often say I hate boxing, and I don't mean the act of boxing. I don't mean the people, my boxers, the people in it, but I hate the sport and the business of boxing because of the way they do things. It reminds me of, and a lot of people may not realize this. This may not have, because he's in the Hall of Fame. But if you remember the situation with Larry Holmes and Ali and Ken Norton. Now, Ali lost the title to Spinks, and then he regained it against Spinks. Now, to fight Spinks the second time, they wanted Norton to fight the fight. So they stripped Ali and they gave the title to Norton, right? They gave it to him because he was, in their eyes, he was supposed to fight Muhammad Ali. So they gave it to him. He didn't have to win it in the ring. He lost in the first title defense to Larry Holmes. So in hindsight, you look at it now and you say, Ken Norton is in the Hall of Fame as heavyweight champion, yet he has never won a heavyweight championship fight. He's never actually won a fight that was for the championship ever. He lost every single fight he had for the championship.
I didn't know that. That's insane. Actually.
He's never won a championship fight,
and he was considered a champion.
He's recognized as WBC champion.
I mean, that's like in the NFL, Tom Brady winning a Super Bowl without playing it. No, is it not the equivalent of that?
That's what I'm saying. It's insanity, and there's no one regulating it. There's no one with common sense who is overseeing this and going, hey, what are you crazy? What are you doing here? What are you doing here? And you know what? Benavidez, athletes, boxers, they're in a tough spot because they can't say necessarily what they really feel because it just would sound crazy. Like if it's me, if I'm Benavidez, I'm saying to myself, I don't want this, man. I don't want the championship like this. I don't want 20 years from now when they ask me, how did I win the title? If they ask Muhammad Ali, he'll say, yeah, man, I knocked out George Foreman in the 8th round. Everybody said I was going to lose. George was pounding on my arms, but I sucked it up and I beat him down, right? And Roy Jones could say, hey, man, I went 12 rounds with the pound-for-pound champ, James Toney, and I outboxed him over 12 rounds, and I captured it. And they can tell all these stories. He has nothing to say. Like David Benavidez will never be able to tell the story of how he won the title. Like it's not, as a boxer, I don't, no one, there's not a kid on this face of this earth in the history going forward or backwards who has ever been in the gym and said, hey, I'm going to train really hard and hopefully one day they give me that phone call or that email, and they let me know that I'm getting a belt mailed to me in 3 to 6 weeks. It's just insane. Yeah. It's insane.
I mean, another thing is, especially, he only had 2 fights at 175 pounds. There's a lot of other guys in that division that maybe not have the profile of him, that maybe or may have, a better stake at the belt, a better claim to the belt. I understand the popularity aspect of it, but I mean, isn't it supposed to be based on the competitiveness of it, as opposed to getting a higher 3% in your sanctioning fees? Doesn't that put a black eye on the sport?
Yeah, well, like I say, the rules and common sense have been bypassed for years.
Yeah.
Years. This is nothing new. It's just that it's getting, I don't know if more blatant is the term, but it's just getting, or I'm just realizing, or I'm getting older and I'm getting to be one of those grumpy old guys who just hates it more now than ever. But it's just like I say, I'm a purist in as a fighter. Like, I still think of boxing like I did when I was a kid, when I was an amateur, when I was not even before I even had a real fight.
Yeah.
The way I thought of it, the champ, man, the champ. And winning a title, being a champion, and you don't have a fight to comment on and tell people what you did to get the title. It's just there's no, you're not sitting around a campfire reminiscing and being able to tell a good story. Like, it just, everybody in the room would be like, "What happened? They called you? Like, they called you on the phone?"
Yeah. I watched Richardson Hitchens about maybe 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, whatever it was, win his belt at 140 pounds. The raw emotion and the happiness that he was able to achieve because he won, it was dope to see. And it's kind of crazy that David will ever get that first feeling.
That's it. Like, that's what I'm saying. Look, you see when Mike Weaver knocked out John Tate, and he fell on his back like a gymnast in the middle of the ring. You see Ali when he beat Liston and he runs over and he's leaning over the ropes, and Sugar Ray Leonard when he beat Duran, and he jumps on the ropes, and it's just awesome to see it. Now you don't get that. You don't get that feeling. You don't get that memory. And I don't care what anybody says. You're not looking back on that with pride. Like in reality, you're going to be embarrassed when somebody who doesn't know, your wife's uncle visits from New Jersey, and he sees the belt, and he's like, "Oh man, you won the belt. Tell me the story." What are you gonna say? You know what I mean? Like, it's just insane.
No, it's a fun. Jamel, I don't know if you guys have met before. You guys, John Iceman, guys. I had to let him know you're going to go on, but we were basically talking about, Better Beef had lost the belt to Bivol and wasn't pretty much the first option on the third fight, and we were talking about them emailing the belt over to Benavidez, and Benavidez not ever feeling the joy of becoming a champion for the first time, and how does that violate the sport? So he was just kind of explaining that. I mean, I really felt for Arthur as well, because, how do you not feel away? Because, like I said, Bivol immediately got the rematch. There was no question. There was nobody else is going to fight. But yet when Better Beef lost the fight, that transpired. And I feel like it leaves room for interpretation, however you want to interpret it. And then also with the WBC handing Benavidez the belt instead of him fighting for it, they really, I forgot the guy's name, the president of WBC. He's really doing every interview possible to kind of justify it. And I've never seen him do that before.
It's called damage control.
But doesn't it look corrupt? Doesn't it kind of like make you look at the sport like, yo, what the hell is this?
Of course. Especially when I think I've seen a video where he's mentioning purses and how much the fighter could potentially make if they would have went this route, and that's not, you don't normally see that from a sanctioned body president. So
yeah, he's not a promoter, so it kind of leaves you wondering, why is he going so hard? Skull, what do you think about that? His comments and how hard he's trying to justify it.
Right. I notice over the last, maybe 20 years or so, a lot of times, especially with the WBC, it seems like the president, his father before him, and then him,
Yep.
They're getting a little more involved than you would think they should be, with these different aspects. They're supposed to let the promoters do their thing, and they either sanction it or they don't. But now it seems more like they're orchestrating a lot of the stuff. Like they're manipulating it the way they want it to go. And it's, even when we were over there, you would think, and I don't, I'm not looking for favoritism, but you would think in a Muslim country, you would think that Arthur would be more of a favorite, right?
Yeah.
But the whole vibe there all the time was always in Bivol's favor.
Yeah, they were cheering Bivol's name, which was crazy. It's not even
right. But even we went to, like, they had public training in a really nice place. I forget the name of it, but I just like if you've ever been to downtown Disney at Disney World, it's like that. It's like downtown Disney, but it's in Saudi. And when I went there the first time, it really shocked me because when Arthur got up to do an interview and shadow box in the ring, it was like really like a lukewarm reception. And I'm like, man, that's kind of weird. And then when Bivol got out there, it was like Elvis came. It was like Elvis Presley showed up. I was just flabbergasted. I was shocked. So the vibe, it wasn't, and I'm, like I say, I'm not looking for favoritism, but that caught me off guard. And now with this type of thing, it definitely raises at least a question in your head.
Does it make you guys as a team kind of want to do the fight outside of Saudi Arabia now because of the things that have transpired? You not getting the immediate rematch, or even them cheering Bivol in a country that he's not from? Does that make you say, you know what, I don't feel comfortable with the judging at this point because of everything that's been transpiring over the last couple months?
Right. I mean, there's so much more that goes on in the background. One, it is what it is.
It is. It don't matter. Honestly, I feel like it don't matter where you go at sometimes with boxing. Like,
right. And plus, look, they pay better than anybody else. They pay. Arthur made more money in those two fights than he probably made in his whole career combined. So, that's just the way it is. And that's ultimately, I'm all about, the fights and the legacy and all. That's always been my mindset. I never, as a boxer, really thought about the money. But by the same token, I wasn't making millions either. Now these guys, they're making millions. So that has to be a factor. And, so it is what it is sometimes.
No, I mean, it is crazy because if you really look at it, like, and again, I get the favoritism aspect of it. If you look at it, you got Bivol's planned on the rematch with Canelo in February. There's a lot of plans for Bivol, but I haven't heard much about Better Beef. So I totally get what you're saying in that. I mean, hopefully the fight does happen for you guys. I would love to see Benavidez and Better Beef. I'm not gonna lie. I would love to see that. I think that's a fight. I mean, again, Arthur is getting older, so rather sooner than later. But we have to see what happens next. Even if, again, they said they shifted over to the third fight. We're gonna see. It hasn't been announced or signed, if I'm not correct, right? Nothing is in. Nothing has been signed, correct?
Right. Not that I know of. No.
Yeah. So, let me see. Jamal, you there?
I'm here.
Oh, I don't see your picture.
No, I'm here.
All right. Now, another question that moving forward from that, because a lot of people want to know what's going on with Arthur. You guys had a hell of a conversation about the Hall of Fame and the credentials, and you brought up a point earlier. I did not know that Ken Norton never won the championship, but had the heavyweight belt, and is in the Hall of Fame, if I'm not mistaken. What do you? I mean, Jamel was talking about the Errol Spence situation. People saying he's not a Hall of Famer. What are the credentials for the Hall of Fame? And
I can only tell you, in my eyes, what the credentials would be, but I do not believe that these credentials are being met. And I'm not going to call anyone out. I'm not going to name me. I don't want to do that. But there's people in the Hall of Fame who, in my eyes, absolutely don't belong in the Hall of Fame. And it's not a disrespect to them. It's just saying that the Hall of Fame is the best of the best. And contrary to what a lot of people may subconsciously think, the Hall of Fame is not for the famous. It's not for it because you're famous. You know, it's for the best of the best. When I think of the Hall of Fame, I think of Sugar Ray Robinson, you know, and Joe Louis and Muhammad Ali. You know, I think of the Hall of Fame. There's guys in there that don't have the credentials. I don't believe it. And look, Ken Norton is famous. Like, he's famous because he was in that era. But, and like I said, I hate to sound like I'm insulting a guy, because I don't. You know, I don't. And I know Ken Norton was a good fighter. He beat some good guys. But, you know, he got absolutely blown out by Foreman, right? He got blown out by other guys. But the upshot, the main thing, he never won a heavyweight championship. He never won a title. You can Google it. You know, I'm sure it's Google. He's never won an actual championship fight. He was gifted the belt the same way that Benavidez was. If you look at his record, other than beating Ali, who it was a non-title fight, it was not a championship fight, you know, there's no Hall of Fame credentials there. And
Ken Norton,
and you know, right, they're not, you know, and he was stopped several times. You know, that's a huge black mark. And the problem is, it's not the same for everybody, because again, there's guys in the Hall of Fame who I would say don't belong, right? That's, you know, they're good. I'm not saying they're not good fighters. I'm just saying Hall of Fame. But Marlon Starling is not in the Hall of Fame. He's not on the ballot. If you look at Marlon Starling's record, his record destroys many, many, many people who are already, and I can call guys out that his record absolutely annihilates theirs. Like, it's not even a question.
Break it down. Give us context with it.
I mean, I don't want to call names out, but
not about his record, what his accomplishments are.
There's it. Two-time world welterweight champion. Marlon Starling. The thing about Marlon is, today, in this era, we're in an era where you don't fight a big fight or a tough fight unless it's for a world championship, right?
Right.
Marlon Starling was fighting guys like Simon Brown, Tommy Ayers, Kevin Howard. He was fighting them in NABF title fights and 10-round fights. He fought Floyd Mayweather Sr. twice. Jose Barrett, who was like, I think he was like 22-0 with 22 knockouts. You know, just the contenders that Marlon beat, just the contenders, were fights that other people would never take. Today, forget about it. They wouldn't fight him. There's no chance they'd fight these guys. You know, Marlon beat Mark Breland when Mark Breland, including by myself, was considered unbeatable. Marlon's from my city. We've sparred together. Nobody on earth thought he was going to beat Mark Breland. And he stopped Mark in the 11th round, beat him on, you know, huge upset. Then he comes out and he beats Lloyd Huntington. He brutalizes Lloyd Huntington. He didn't just beat Lloyd Huntington. He dissected him after Huntington had beaten Donald Curry. So that's 2 welterweight titles that he really, really, really earned. And he was definitely the underdog against Mark, and he was probably the underdog against Lloyd as well. But like I say, the guys he beat just in non-title fights is phenomenal. And the guys he lost to were all, you know, he lost a majority decision as a welterweight to Michael Nunn when Michael Nunn was in his prime. Like, Michael Nunn was pound for pound #1, and Marlon was a welterweight, and he gave Michael a very tough fight. But he's not even on the ballot. Now, there's guys, again, I won't say names, but there's guys who, if you're going to look at their victories side by side, they do not compare, not even a tiny little bit, to Marlon.
The biggest name a lot of people bring up is Arturo Gatti. A lot of people say Arturo Gatti never really had a big win or a win that could have got him in the Hall of Fame, and he's in the Hall of Fame. And a lot of people make that argument. What do you feel about the Arturo Gatti comparisons?
You know, Arturo's a tough guy to decide on. You know what I mean? On one day I could say yeah, one day I say no. You know, I look at his record. He did beat some good fighters, and people need to remember one thing about Arturo. When you think of Arturo Gatti, you think of Rocky Balboa. You think of a guy with no defense, just taking punches and getting cut and knocking people out desperate, right?
Right.
But when he beat Tracy Harris Patterson, and I called that fight for ESPN Classic with Joe Tessitore, Arturo boxed magnificently against Tracy Harris Patterson. He looked like $1 million fighter. That was at 130. When he moved up, he had to be more of a warrior. I guess the guys are too big, too strong, whatever. He was a two-time world champion. I give him credit because he won some thrilling fights. But again, with all that said, his victories do not compare to Marlon Starling's. Now, they do not at all. Like so Arturo, I could put him in, I could keep him out. I get why he's in. Like there was nobody more exciting. I give him that. There was nobody more must-see TV at that time than Arturo. But if you're going to go fight for fight, career for career, he's not better than Marlon Starling. There's no way.
Jamel, how do you feel about that?
No, I agree with John. I agree with him. My main thing is like I don't have no issue if that's why he's in there, but what's the standards? If you don't put a guy like Marlon in, what are the standards in here? Especially if you say that Marlon has a far superior resume, and during the era where it was much tougher at, and guys fought more consistently at. What is our standards for today? Even guys going in today's era, like what is the standard?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, somebody bring up Iran Barkley. You bring up, I think last time it was Diego Corrales.
Yeah.
I mean,
like in that era with the Gaudis and everything, why isn't you don't hear a mention of the Vernon Forrests or the Diego Corrales and so forth?
Right.
What do you think about that, John?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I would think if you ask someone on the, I don't know what they call it, the board of directors or electors, whatever, and say, what's the criteria? Honestly, I don't think they could tell you. And they're on the board. I don't think they could tell you, because if they do tell you, whatever they tell you, you can dispute it with people that they've chosen. You can say, well, if that's true, how come he's in and he's not? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And I'll give it like on a much smaller scale. I was on the board of directors for the Hall of Fame in Connecticut, and I was one of the people who helped choose, pick people. And there was people that were on the board who, in my opinion, didn't even belong on that board of electors because they didn't know the history. I knew they didn't know the history. I know these people, and I know they don't know the history. They weren't around for it. They just don't know it. And then we had conversations, and in the course of the conversation, I could see that they didn't know, pretty basic stuff in my eyes. So I ended up quitting. I resigned from the board because I said, man, I can't be a part of this. Like, I'll give you an example. We have Gene Tunney in our Hall of Fame, former heavyweight champ, right?
Right.
Yet he never boxed in Connecticut. He was not he lived here when he was like 75 years old. He lived here. He died here. So he's in our Hall of Fame. Now, come on. Like, what are we doing here? Like, so I think I've noticed it with other Hall of Fame, not just the International Hall of Fame, but I've noticed it with other ones. I certainly think there's friendships involved, and like it's kind of a coincidence this, some of the people that have been inducted in the last 5 years are friends of the people who are on the board. You know what I mean? So it's kind of weird. It's just kind of a crazy thing. It's almost like it does remind me of politics.
Yeah.
And, the political world, and because everybody in Congress isn't in Congress because they know what they're talking about. You know what I mean? That's not how they got there. And I think boxing is very similar.
Well, I mean, for most people don't even know the process. What is the actual process of getting on the ticket and being considered and making all of it? What is actually the process? Because I don't even know that.
Well, I would imagine, put it this way, I don't know for sure. I'll tell you how it is on the Connecticut Hall of Fame, and maybe they had the prototype, but on the Connecticut Hall of Fame, everyone would offer 5 possible people that they think should be in the Hall of Fame, and then whichever ones were similar, like if 10 people said Marlon Starling, then and more than anybody else, then okay, so you take like the top 5 people who picked suggested these people, so whoever would get the most out of that. But honestly I don't know, but I do know for sure that there are people who are young and they're on the national or the International Hall of Fame. I know they're on the board. They're young, and so all they know is basically what they've been able to Google, what they heard. But like, again, I always go back to our Hall of Fame, like Connecticut. Like there's people, it's kind of a coincidence. Like most of the vast majority of the trainers who are in there are from the last 20 years or the last 25 years. And I go, well, what about all the trainers in Hartford back in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, back when there was 10 times more professional fighters than there are now? Because, and a lot of people don't know that. I've probably told you this before, but I read a thing once and it said in 1940s, 47, say, there were more professional boxers in New York City than there are right now today in the entire United States of America. That's how many fighters were around. So you're telling me out of all those guys in all those cities in America, and we can't find the Hall of Famers, like you couldn't possibly know all those guys. And in Connecticut there were so many guys, yet most of the people who've been inducted have been in the last 20 years. Well, what about all the great fighters from 1947, 1956, 1963? You don't even know who they are. So how could you possibly put them on the ballot? And I think with the International Hall of Fame, it's a similar thing, and I kind of equate it to this. Like if you say LeBron James, the greatest basketball player of all time, that's okay. I guess, if you think that, but you can't say that if you never even heard of Bill Russell. You never even heard Bill Russell's name. You don't even know who he is. So your all time only goes back to 1999. Like you know nothing about 1973. So all time for you and all time for me is 2 different places.
Right.
No, that's a great point. It's great because
different eras, different styles of play as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is crazy because this was all spawned pretty much because of that interview with Bud Crawford, right? Where he said that he didn't believe that Errol Spence was a Hall of Famer. I think Jamel, you responded to that, right?
Yeah.
You believe Errol is a Hall of Famer, and you gave your reasons. You want to highlight those reasons real quick?
Basically, like I said, he went overseas to get his first title. Kell Brook pretty much at the time, even though he lost to Golovkin, yes, the fight prior, he stood up, still went in as a champion, still was the man. It was still a close fight until the stoppage. And then after that, he went from fighting belt after belt, every title holder that had a belt. He didn't pick up any vacated titles. He pretty much unified the entire division. The only man that was standing in front of him left was Bud, but even so, look at the champions he fought. Even the former world champions, no matter where they were in their careers, like the Lamont Peterson and so forth, Errol was still trying to fight the best available in our era. You know what I mean? Of course, they're not Sugar Rays and things of that nature. But again, these are the top guys. If you rank them during this era, he was fighting those guys.
John, what do you feel about that? Do you
criteria here? Because if he could be a multiple world champion, then why other guys that have made it into the Hall of Fame that they don't even have that nowhere close to that resume, just that maybe they were popular or they have a name? Why is it that these guys are considered Hall of Famers and they going in? They're going in first ballots half the time.
Right.
John, what do you feel about that?
Well, with me, to be honest, I never really like I don't really know Errol's career all that well. You know,
Right.
I watched the fight with Crawford, so honestly, I couldn't really say, you know, because I don't know even who he won his titles from. I didn't follow him till after he got really big. But I'll say this, him aside, just in general terms, I'll tell you what a major problem is, and I think from what I've seen, some of the people on the voting board don't realize this. But I'll give you an example. Adrian Broner is a 4-time champion, right? Four world titles. Now, number one, I think the only one I could name that he beat was Malignaggi. I don't know any of the other ones, right? But yes, I can tell you everybody that Roberto Duran beat for his titles.
Right.
You know what I mean? Duran won 4. And I can tell you the guys he beat because they were major names, big fights, big people. I don't know who Adrian beat. And the problem is, in this era, there's 4 titles to choose from, right? 4 titles to choose from. You lose a fight, a championship fight, is no problem because your promoter turns you around and puts you in a fight for another title with another sanctioned body immediately. There are people who believe that Adrian Broner is a better fighter than Marvin Hagler because Hagler only won 1 title. I've seen people say, oh, Hagler only won 1 title. And so Adrian Broner has 4, so he's much better than Marvin Hagler, which is so stupid, like so unbelievably stupid to think or say. And, you know, Hagler is not even in the same universe. You know, or Broner is not in the same universe in any way, shape, or form as Marvin Hagler. But yet there are people who go, well, he won 4 titles. Like Floyd won, I don't know, 17 titles or whatever it is he won, right? Well, there's 4 to choose from. I mean, Sugar Ray Robinson only had 1, right? Robinson didn't have the junior division. He didn't have junior middleweight. He didn't have super middleweight to go to. He didn't have junior welterweight. They didn't really consider a real title back then. So it's a different era, you know, but you have people who would think, oh, well, this guy only won 1 title. Yeah. His name is Marvin Hagler. He's better than everybody you know, but yet he only won 1 title, so he must not be that good. So
now, I went like I was there at the DeMarco fight. That's probably one of my favorite fights of Adrian Broner. You know, watching it live. But to go saying though too, John. I mean, I think with that being said, the criteria has to change over time because, like you just pointed out, I think when Sugar Ray Leonard was around, I think it was just pretty much at that point in time the WBA and the WBC.
That's it.
I think in 88 or 80 whatever it came to IBF and then
that was 84.
Yeah, but the WBO wasn't that big until pretty much
like 1990.
Yeah, something. Yeah, not too far long ago. So again, it's different. So I think we definitely have to change. Like the criteria has to go with the era because that makes perfect sense. Like Marvin Hagler only had one title, whatever, held 1 belt, but look at the stack of people he was fighting to get to that title, and the way he had to go through to even get that shot was
that's what I mean. Fighters today would never in a million years choose that route. Like they didn't, you know, and he didn't choose it because he wanted to, like he had to, but he did it successfully. Most guys couldn't come through that successfily.
And he couldn't even celebrate when he won it. When he won the title, he couldn't even celebrate it.
Right.
Garbage and beer cans and everything. He couldn't even celebrate in the ring when he won the title. But
they had beer bottles at the fights back then.
So again, I think we should we need to rate it by not just because like you said, it's belts. Because you are right. You could lose your world title tomorrow, but 6 months from now you could fight for this world title because of who you are, and if you're a good seller and if people love you, they can easily, you know, and if you have a good relationship with the sanctions body, they can easily just put you in that rank. It's like, hey,
right, and listen, that's another thing that I don't like. Especially with the WBC, you know, with some of the Mexican fighters, especially Canelo. It's very obvious that they favor him. Like it's not even a secret. They don't even make a secret out of it anymore. You know, and he's a top fighter. You know, I respect Canelo tremendously. He's a great fighter and all that, but you can't have your sanctioning body president talking about you like you're his fighter. You know what I mean? Like the sanction body is not supposed to be favoring people and being partial to people. That's not how it's supposed to work. But that's how, they give Canelo special belts when he wins now. Like, it's like he's their child, and it's that's not right at all.
And that's a good point. And should sanctioning bodies get 3% of the purse? I think maybe that's also what's leading to these decisions. Why wouldn't you want more money?
That's right. They want them right. Now you put a cap on that. Mm-hmm. You say, hey, my guy's making 50 million, but we're not giving you 3% of 50 million. Like, come on, because that money is too much of an influence all the way around. The sanctioning body can't be, the fact is, in the back room, they're going, hey, man, I know we're supposed to be impartial, but this fight's going to bring us $24 million, and this fight's only going to bring us $74. We got to, so it doesn't matter, in their eyes, deep down, it doesn't matter who really deserves it. It matters who's making that money for them. And, I think it's too much of people are starting to understand, and they're going to realize it after I say it, but the sanction body is a business. They are not in it. They're not in this, like, and when I was a kid, I thought the sanction body was there just to,
acknowledge the champion.
Like hand the belt to the champ, But I realized this is they're a business. That's how they get paid. They go into business. Some people become carpenters. Some people become mechanics. Some people become sanction body presidents, and that's how they make their money.
It's insane that they're getting paid.
Great point, because I also want to add on to that is it's not even just with the champions. I've seen it myself where, for example, guys like Abel was #1 contender for like over a year, but since he didn't have the backing behind him and the machine in terms of the promoter, and he's basically self-promoting himself, he got overlooked a few times with his ranking, to where eventually they had to just knock him down, even though he's undefeated. They knocked him down for the ranking, and they gave the mandatory to Oscar Valdez when he fought Navarrete and so forth. And it's all about who's behind you as well. Everything plays a part in boxing these days. So you could be the champion, get favoritism, but also if the #1 contender is a threat, but he doesn't bring enough money in and have that backing, they're going to skip over him, go to the next guy.
Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever been to a convention like WBC? Okay.
2 years ago, I believe, 2-3 years ago now.
Have you ever been to the when they do the rankings? You ever been to the meeting they do?
I haven't been there, but I've seen it, how it plays out. I know how it plays out.
Man, I wouldn't have believed it if I wasn't there. I wouldn't have believed me, and I'm not gonna say who it was, but me and the top fighter, we were there, and he got moved up in the rankings that day, right? And we saw how it happened, and him and I looked at each other in disbelief, and we just laughed while we were walking out. We just laughing, and his manager got mad. His manager goes, "Stop laughing! Hey, don't make a joke out of this, man. You got to be serious while we're here." Right? And I said, "Man,
no, I've seen it. No, I've seen it. I've seen it play out.
So you know.
I mean, you guys know. I don't know. Can you please tell me?"
I've seen conversations on the side when you be like, "Hey, listen, my guy would love to fight for your title someday," and that's how it starts. That's how it starts. It's like, okay,
listen, let me tell you what happened. Look. I promise you, this is a true story. I'm not gonna tell you who the fighter was, but I'm gonna tell you what happened. We're at the thing, the meeting, right? And all, we're talking managers, promoters, fighters, everybody's there, like we're like in a movie theater, and everybody's in the audience. So the fighter, they go to like his weight class, and they go, all right, in this weight class, is anybody here, from and they put the rankings up on the screen. So my friend's manager stands up and I represent this fighter, and he's sitting right next to me, and he goes, he's a really good guy, and he's married. He's got, 3 kids, and he's been married for 6 years, and he's ranked I think he was like number 11. So he goes, he's trying to be active. He's fought 3 times this year. He wants to fight 4 or 5 times this coming year. We think he should be moved up. So the guy on the stage says, well, where do you think he should be? And the manager goes, well, I was thinking maybe, top 5, So the guy on the stage, I'm telling you, this is a true story. The guy on the stage goes, how about number 4? And he goes, yeah, that sounds good. And he goes, all right, do I hear anyone second the motion to put this guy at number 4? And somebody raises their hand. A couple of guys raise their hand. They go, okay. Literally on the screen, they have the pointer and they point at it on the projector, and they move him up and they put the other guy down 1 peg. Boom! In 5 seconds, he went from 12 to 3 or 4, and we walked out and just in disbelief. And the manager was mad at us because we were laughing. And he goes, you got to be professional. You can't be laughing in here. I go, yeah, but this is not how it's supposed to be done, man. That's crazy.
Oh, I mean, that sounds like bullshit. I'm not going to lie. I'm not saying you're lying.
It is. It's nuts.
But it explains a lot. It really does. I don't even know who the hell William Skull was, and he became the number 1 contender.
Even myself, I was going old school. I never forget when I fighting with Top Rank. I think this is 2018. I win the USBA title, which is under the IBF. So I'm excited. I'm thinking, I'm about to get a major push in the rankings. Nothing. And then I started doing my own research and figuring it out. Like, it's pretty much all about who you know. So I thought, back in the old school, NABF, NABA, you win that regional title, you get ranked high with the no. No.
I mean, it explains a lot.
But you be lucky if you crack the top 15.
I mean, it explains a lot. I mean, William Skull got the number 1 contender for the WBC, and I don't know 10 people that can name 3 fights from him. I don't know. Can you name 3 fights from him? Anybody here? No. Edgar Berlanga was moved up to number 1 as well. And he didn't beat nobody significant. And it blew my mind. I did not know this is how it happens, but it makes complete sense now. It's absolutely absurd.
Yeah. But hey guys, I got to step out real quick. But man, it's good seeing you, John. Norbs, I'm gonna give you but I gotta step out real quick. My brother just came in. So
listen, I'm gonna see you June 20th, right? In Vegas.
Yeah, I'll be out there.
But I have my event. I got my reunion.
I know, I've seen it there.
So I'll see you. It's at the Rio.
Let's make it happen.
All right, I'll be in touch with you.
All right, my man.
All right,
John. I'm not gonna lie.
I gotta get out of here too. I got about 1 minute left.
No, I appreciate all the time you give me, man. I love. First of all, I need that poster sign, man. Please.
Yeah. Okay, no problem.
But I'm gonna let you go. But this was so dope because I don't think anybody in the world knew this is actually how you get sanctioned and. How you get ranked. It's absolutely absurd. But, John, let them know what you got going on. You got the movie. You got your show June 20th. Let them know what's up.
Right. Well, they're doing a documentary on me, which is going to premiere in Hartford, Connecticut on June 28th. Looks pretty good. I've seen the trailer. It looks really, really Hollywood. I'm excited and impressed with it. It's called The Ice Never Melts. And June 28th is the premiere. And then I have a big reunion that I'm doing on June 20th in Las Vegas. And then at the end of the month, I have Stephen Butler fighting Eric Bazinian in Montreal, which is going to be a big fight up there in Montreal. Big fight between 2 really good super middleweights. So I have a pretty busy summer coming.
Can I ask one more question? And I'll let you out of here.
Yeah.
One more. So you said it's a documentary, correct?
Right.
Okay. If they end up shooting a biopic on John Iceman Scully, who should play Iceman Scully? It got to be a good-looking guy. Because you're a good-looking guy.
Let me see. I don't know. DiCaprio.
I can see it happening. John, again, man, I appreciate you always, man. Whenever you have time, please come through. You know we love having you, man. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you.
My brother, appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Yes, sir.
That was my guy, John Iceman Scully, the legend. Documentary coming soon. Drops June 20th. I think he said the 28th. His reunion June 20th in Vegas. One of the good guys of the sport. Doesn't get as much credit as he should. This guy's a living legend, and I love having him on the show. I hope we got some clarity on how things are done in boxing, which still I don't even know. All right? Having said that, it's your boy Noah. This was an extra show for my people. Oh, excuse me. Continue to grow the channel. Like, share, subscribe. Continue to support us. We love you. This is your boy Norbs, and we are out. We working, baby.